Good morning. Happy Friday to everybody that's tuning in this morning. My name is Gideon Blau. I'm with the Clean Tech Hub. Today we are with Alex Sinasi. He's the founder and CEO of Mitsidi based in Brazil. Alex, good morning. How are you?
Hi, Gideon. Good morning. I'm great. How are you?
Doing good. Awesome.
Thank you so much
Alex,
for having us here today.
no, a pleasure. A pleasure is all mine. Great to see you here. Alex is one of the founding partners at Mitsidi. They are participating in a program of a UK LATAM growth, and this is a program that we do with the UK embassies in Latin America. So not only in Brazil and Colombia, where we are based, but also in Argentina, Chile, Mexico, and even in the Caribbean. So this is a region-wide program. We do this with the support of the UK, and we focus on clean tech entrepreneurs that are looking to expand beyond the Latin American region. So, Alex, before we go dive into Mitsidi, what you guys offer, etc., first one I want to begin with you, and this is a question I always ask all the entrepreneurs because this is, of course, focused on clean tech. So we are very passionate about let's say, climate action. We want to know where this started with you, maybe as a little boy, maybe in university. So please tell us a little bit about you.
Okay, thanks. When I actually grew up in New York, I'm from Rio, but I grew up most of my life in New York, and that's where I got really this idea of being connected to the world, because there were people from basically everywhere that went to school with me. And then I lived some time in France, and that's where when I had my first contact with energy efficiency, with renewable energies, and I really opened my eyes. I was living in Marseille, which is the city of the sun. I would look up at the sun and say, "Why are we not using more of this?"
Hmm.
And then when I came back to Brazil, I knew that I wanted to work. I'm an environmental engineer. I knew that I wanted to work with something that had to do with energy. Very few people from my course of environmental engineering used to work with energy. And I said, but this is the environment. This is one of the most important things in the environment. And then I started working with green building certification, mainly LEED certification. And after a while, I started feeling that, okay, this is nice, but the impact that we can have is very limited because you're working
Mhm.
with one client here, one client there, one building here, one building there. We started looking at some neighborhood projects, but it was still, very limited in terms of what actually changed as a result of our work. And then um, I met Edward, who is
Mhm.
the main founder of
Mhm.
Mitsidi, and we discussed a lot about different ways to have impact, and found out that working in with government and working with framework projects, we could have a lot more impact than just client by client by client. So it's something that developed in me, I guess, over the years, and doesn't make any sense to me not to work with climate impact mitigation.
Yes, yes. Okay, this is very exciting. Yeah, there's most of the entrepreneurs I talk with. They all have this personal experience as a little kid, looking at the sun, or afterwards when they get children, then they really get connected with the theme. So it's great to see that you already had that. And yeah, I always remember the words of Elon Musk. He says, "Yeah, why are we trying to use, let's say, carbon fuels when we have this huge fusion reactor up in the sky, and it's always there every morning, and it generates more than enough power for our local, let's say, for the entire planet." So yes, makes totally sense. So you started, let's say, out of let's say LEED, build, and green certifications in buildings, and you were looking at, okay, how can we scale this? And I think that's a very interesting thing, right? You really look at it not necessarily, let's say, from an economic perspective, but you look at how can we expand our impact, right? How can we expand our climate impact by the way we are doing business? So tell us a little bit about that. How was this process where you were together with your partner? it made sense. There was a click, and you said, "Okay, yes, we have to make this move in order to expand our impact."
Listen, since the company began, we began working on two fronts. So one front was specifically with industry, with consumers, energy consumers, and we had a big project with a local glass industry where we were helping them reduce energy. And at the same time, we had another big project with Procel, which is the Brazilian electricity conservation program, basically the energy efficiency program in Brazil. And this project was also with the Brazilian Sustainable Building Council. And the goal of this project was to create energy benchmarks for buildings in Brazil, so that energy labeling for buildings could be a reality a few years into the future. And this idea was actually brought back from the UK, where this was much more advanced.
Okay. Yeah.
So we brought a lot of this idea from there. And we immediately realized that the work with public policy on one hand, advancing framework, advancing legislation, and allowing enough data in order to make decision makers make informed decisions in terms of policy, aligned with the work we were doing with direct consumers, was the way forward in terms of increasing our impact. However, after some time, we did realize that consultancy, this kind of services, it is hard to scale. So at the same time, we always had this idea of having a spin-off, having something that we could become a product and that could really scale more quickly.
Yeah.
So in that sense, we developed within a research and development project in Brazil, a software called Energy Brain, which is a software tool that helps us implement energy audits. Basically, it puts all of our years of experience into a box, which streamlines and automates a lot of the process. And now, especially in the pandemic and in post-pandemic times, let's say, it allows us to do a lot of our energy auditing work from a distance, which is something that we didn't think about in the beginning.
Yeah.
It wasn't even the original idea. So this tool is something that helps us to be able to reach a lot of clients at the same time. And we have used it in one of the uses that we see a lot of potential, actually combines these two sides, the energy audits with the software tool and our energy policy intelligence work. So let me give you an example.
Yeah.
We worked with the city of São Paulo in a project financed by C40 cities.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah. So we work a lot with international organizations like GIZ, the British Embassy itself. We've worked a number of times with them. In fact, this first benchmarking project I mentioned was funded by the British Embassy.
Okay.
And this project, funded by C40 cities with the municipality of São Paulo, one of the biggest cities in the world, had as a goal to create an action plan for energy efficiency in São Paulo's public buildings.
Okay. Yeah.
And we were able to use our Energy Brain software in order to do energy audits in a large number of buildings in a very short amount of time.
Okay.
So
very interesting.
To audit a portfolio of buildings. And that's one of the ways that we see our product being used in government programs, because there's so much energy auditing that has to do in all of the countries. Really to be able to know, where you have to place the money in order to really get your building stock to be much more efficient.
Yeah, let's hone in on that one, because I think this is very interesting. You're talking about let's say energy efficient buildings, and you see this in a lot of different fields through the private sector, where we need to have tools that are more efficient, are scalable, and make it therefore also cost effective in order to work on sustainability and let's say these or reduce climate emissions. Now, talking about let's say energy accounting work in a box, like you described the Energy Brain, I like that a lot. is because one thing is policies, and policy, you need to have the policies with you in order to facilitate this way of doing business, right? Instead of doing one-on-one individual or building auditing, government needs to accept this, right, as a valid tool. So let's first click on that one. How did you go about convincing, talking, having the conversations with authorities about offering these types of tools and regulations?
Okay. A lot of government authorities already know today that energy efficiency regulations must advance.
Yeah.
Not necessarily do they have the necessary teams or the means to, or the information to know what the best policy strategies are. So let's say a few years ago, the energy transition was not a trendy word. So this wasn't so much the case. And that's why it was important to bring some of these ideas from the UK. It was a country that's recognizably much more advanced in terms of energy policy. Edward, who is the main founder of Mitsidi, as I mentioned, he is British. So this was a very strong way to bring in the ideas. And basically what we do is, because of our work, and we're basically the only private company that really does this kind of work, we're often in the same room as only government entities, civil society organizations, for example, in academia. And we bring the private sector look into this type of work.
Yeah.
And so in this way, we're able to bring a lot of knowledge and experience, which ends up being heard by the public sector.
Yes.
People who make the informed decisions. So in Brazil, again, for example, we're often in the same room as the Energy Ministry and the Electricity Regulation Agency and the Energy Research Office, who does all of the energy planning and forecasts for the next 10 years, for the next 20 years. And we're often in the same room as them, talking about the future of energy. And that's really where, our eyes get wide open and really come alive when we see that the work that we're doing is really having an influence on the people who are creating the policy. So bringing maybe another example, we worked also with the government of Uruguay, with the Energy Ministry as well, to make energy benchmarks in buildings as well. And we're also working with the International Energy Agency, the IEA, since 2018, in subsequent contracts with them. And with them, we are able to reach a large number of countries. So mainly countries in Asia and countries in Latin America and the Caribbean. We've been doing a lot of studies in terms of what exists already in terms of public policy for energy efficiency in buildings, in air conditioners and other appliances, and what the gaps are, what the barriers are, how policies can be more advanced and more effective. And going a level deeper, I mean, sometimes the policy is very good, but no one's actually monitoring if it's really being implemented and if it's really bringing the impact that the government wanted it to bring. Today, I think it's very clear that most of the countries, or very, very large number of countries, see the energy transition as something that is positive and something that is necessary and also competitive. It's very hard for a country that wants to maintain relations with the entire world to not be thinking about decarbonization, thinking about how they can use more renewable energies. And in fact, and I agree completely with this sentence who was said by Fatih Birol of the IEA. Energy efficiency is the first fuel because it's the cheapest way for us to avoid the creation of new energy plants. So we see that today. Yeah, we see that today government really does see the importance of that, and that is why we decided. We've always thought very much about it, but we really decided last year that we have to go abroad in a more direct way.
Yeah. Okay. Now, before we go abroad here, I first like to ask you, because you talk about gaps and barriers, and I think especially like we both live here in Latin America, and we see a lot of gaps and barriers.
Yeah.
And I think with your solution, the way you offer your product for, let's say, for energy auditing, especially for, let's say, with regards to buildings, I think it's very interesting also to touch on those barriers that you see, for example, in the private sector. So what limiting factors are there for businesses, let's say large multinationals, to do the energy auditing for all of their plants, for example?
I would say that the public sector today has a lot of interest and a lot of desire, but
Hmm.
doesn't have the resources.
Yeah.
So that is one of the barriers. I think that's why many of our projects that do go forward are a triangular sort of project. So you have the beneficiary, who is the public sector. You have a financing partner, which is very often, if we're talking about the developing world, it's very often
Hmm.
an international organization or an organization that comes from a developing country, and ourselves, who do this kind of studies and research. But we have found, for example, and we've done a lot of work with local governments, municipal governments.
Yeah.
And again, we see a lot of desire, and we see that the governments that have really had more success are the ones that have created um, an institutional relationship department or an international relationship department. Cities that are looking outside of their own area of influence and seeing, okay, how can we partner with other cities? How can we um, speak to organizations from different countries in order to bring the financing and to bring capacity building? So one of the barriers is resources, financial resources, and another barrier um, is human resources, is really knowledge
Yeah. Mm.
about
Yeah.
how energy efficiency can be implemented, what the possibilities are. So that's
Hmm.
talking about the public sector. But at the same time, if we talk about large organizations that have a really big potential of becoming more efficient,
Yeah.
and we also see that that advances more slowly than it could.
Yeah.
And I think one of the main reasons there also is in terms of the need for capacity building in energy efficiency. And
Yeah.
because the resources end up being limited, and industry, for example, uses most of its resources in terms of increasing their production
Yeah.
and not necessarily reducing their energy rates.
Yeah.
So so today I think it becomes more and more clear for companies, and we see that clearly the market is expanding very rapidly
Hmm.
in the consciousness about energy efficiency. It becomes more and more clear for the companies that using the energy in a more efficient way is extremely competitive. It's a very competitive aspect uh,
Yeah.
of a business, and in a cheap way. So we really do see that that this is advancing um, more and more and more over the years as this consciousness is increasing.
Yeah. So you're basically telling companies now and people in business in private sector that being energy efficient goes straight to your bottom line as a business because it will be also more cost efficient.
I mean, definitely, and energy efficiency. There's so many opportunities that have an excellent payback period and have an excellent return on investment, an excellent ROI. A lot of energy efficiency actions. I mean, most people think about humongous investments. A lot of energy efficiency actions can be implemented with zero cost or with very low cost. I mean, we're talking about more efficient operations, operating hours. We're talking about operating parameters of the different equipment. So that's what we look at first. And I mean, usually 5 to 10%, sometimes more, can be saved only with this kind of zero or low cost opportunities. And then if we have an
Yeah.
energy plan, an energy management policy in place within a company or within a municipality, for example, this allows us to have a completely different view than just doing, separate energy projects here and there. And
Yeah.
then if you
Yeah.
start with these quick wins or these low costing measures, and you start to measure how much you're saving, you actually create
Mhm.
a sort of fund inside the company that can be used to finance the medium cost investments. And then those very high cost
Yes.
investments, such as retrofitting an entire air conditioning system, that's not for today. We're not doing energy audits to say you have to change your entire air conditioning system now. This is actually something that will be done after a few years, when it's closer to the end of life, and you have already saved from a lot of different measures.
Yeah.
And that's when we really talk about energy management, and that's something that we work on very strongly. So there are guidelines for that today, such as the ISO 50001 system. So we work with ISO 50001, ISO 50002, which helps with the energy audits. And really, the idea is to tell an energy story. I recently read an article that talked about an energy personal organizer, something like that. But I think really the idea is that the company is not really looking at its energy use as one of its main factors. And once it realizes that if I organize my energy consumption, if I organize my energy efficiency policy, it can really bring me a very strong competitive factor, and somebody can actually help me do that so that I don't have to deviate my attention from my main production. Wow, it's something working for me in order to increase my my competitiveness.
Yeah. Yes. Interesting. Yeah, I love this topic. Energy brain. Let's look under the hood. What's inside the box? How you guys go about energy accounting? How does it work?
So once again, it's what's inside the box is years of experience, but stronger than that, it's there are a lot of methodologies that are underneath the hood. So we use two major methodologies when we're talking about energy efficiency calculations. One of them is CIBSE, which is the Chartered Institute of Building Science Engineers from the UK. And another is ASHRAE, which is the Association of Heat and Refrigeration Engineers in the United States. Both of these organizations are world references in terms of energy efficiency calculations, guidelines, and we've always used a lot of these guidelines in order to direct the way that we calculate our energy efficiency measures, in order to to be absolutely certain that we're having a robust and recognized way of calculating. So the tool works in a way that's very user friendly. So the user himself can input the data from his building into the Energy Brain tool, and the tool underneath that will take all of the information about, for example, what systems you have in your building today, what the size of the building is, how old these systems are, what the power is, and it's made in an educational way, so the user can click on the little question marks and the help buttons in order to see exactly where can I find this information in my building, where can I really put in the correct information. And then what we used to do in Excel spreadsheets, which is get all this information that we used to get on the field in in-person energy audits, and then we put them in our Excel spreadsheets in order to calculate what the energy saving potential is. All of these calculations have been programmed into the system. So when the user inputs their building data, the toolbox automatically calculates what the best energy efficiency measures are. So there's a sort of built-in checklist that'll say, okay, so if your air conditioning system already meets this and this and this parameter, it's already efficient, and we're not going to suggest that as a measure. But if this and this parameter are still not met, there is a big opportunity. And then for these measures, with all of this input data, it will calculate exactly what the cost is and what the savings potential is, the payback period, etc. And the output, of course, has to be visual. So a lot of graphs, a lot of information that'll show how quickly you'll get your return on investment. And there's also some extra modules, which besides talking about energy efficiency, will also bring renewable energy opportunities. So how much can you save in terms of solar energy generation, and also a country-specific sort of information, but how you contract your energy, if it's from a regulated distributor or if you're contracting your energy from the open market from renewable sources. in Brazil, for example, there's a difference in terms of the cost and what's better, what's worse. So there are some recommendations there, and the user really is able to see a wide range of his options and how much it's going to cost, how much he's going to be able to
Yeah.
save.
Awesome. Awesome. I love it. I love it. Yeah. And I assume, I mean, this is, let's say, version 1.0 or 2.0. You probably, you guys keep feeding the monster more input data on different countries, different benchmarks and checklists. Correct?
Yes, so we have a roadmap for our development, for the development of the software. So we recently entered into a second acceleration program with the Energy Brain tool. So it just won first place in a competition this year with another institution from Germany, and so this is the second big acceleration of our product.
Yeah.
And within our roadmap for development, we have a number of different modules that we plan to develop in the future. So, for example, related to the carbon market, which is something that will be growing very strong in coming years, and also modules that will help with the measurement and verification of the actual implementation of these measures.
Yeah.
And also the idea of exporting this tool to other countries also means that there is a lot of adapting to do. So the roadmap
Yeah.
includes exactly what we have to adapt in different countries. For example, costs. I mean, you have to adapt the existing database of costs of the measures, or as I mentioned, the tariff structure changes from one country
Yeah.
to another.
Yeah.
So this is very, very important. I mean, the tool, it's universal in its language. I mean, energy efficiency, the technology is the same. So it's universal, but there are these points that do have to be adapted from one country to another. So of course, that depends on us having a strong potential in a country, or having a partner who will be able to finance or fund this transition into a new country, or a company that wants to fund this. Those are the different ways that we can go.
Yeah, but I mean, there's so many different rules and regs around, let's say, energy usage and grid systems. Some countries allow for feed-in tariffs, and others just say there's no way, we don't have feed-in tariffs. And this could even be within the country different. So I mean, there's not like a universal rule saying, well, put up solar panels, and this will be the most efficient way of organizing your building, because it depends on a lot of rules and regulations. Yeah, it makes a lot of
Yes.
sense.
So yes, I mean, exactly, and that's true for some of the modules. So when you're talking
Yeah.
about energy tariffs and renewable energies, but for the energy efficiency itself, that's
Mhm.
more inside the consumer.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So the rules and regulations will be less different from one country to another in that sense. Of course, you can have countries where if you have an energy efficiency project, you can apply for certain incentives, government incentives, for example. So if the tool is used in a different country, it would be interesting that it would bring this into consideration to tell the user how much he's going to be able to save in terms of these tax incentives, for example.
Yeah.
That's why we see that there are different stages of development, and really the bulk of the technical aspects can be transported to different countries more quickly, and then
Yeah.
everything that's around it has to be adapted to each country we go to. But also,
Yeah.
speaking of these rules and regulations, I mean, that brings us again to the first scope of our work, which is the energy policy intelligence. And we see that each country does have its different types of policy,
Yeah.
but a lot of the barriers are the same. And looking at a national level,
Yeah.
we see a very, very large lack of data, lack of information.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, what is the building stock in a determined country?
Yeah.
In Morocco, in Egypt, in South Africa, how many buildings are there? What is the consumption of these buildings? What is actually the potential if we have different energy labeling schemes, for example?
Yeah.
Where does this data come from, and how is it possible to create different indicators, and where are these indicators located, and how is the governance structure? Who's actually responsible for this? And a lot of different governments are asking themselves these questions, and others haven't even reached the point of asking themselves these questions. They just know, okay, I do need to improve energy efficiency. I have
Yeah.
some policy here.
Yeah.
So we're doing, I think, one of our landmark projects, one of the projects I'm most proud of at the moment,
Yeah.
is that in this sector is that we are doing an impact analysis of
Mhm.
a very, very large piece of regulation in Brazil, which will make
Okay.
energy labeling mandatory for all buildings in the entire country.
Oh,
And
wow. A
yeah, and
monster.
this has the potential to change
Yeah.
the construction industry
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
change the way that people buy or rent
Yeah. Yeah.
their apartments, their houses.
Yeah.
And how is this going to impact all of the different sectors in the country? How is what is the best implementation plan for this in the
Yeah.
next 15 years?
Yeah.
And we have actually been contracted to do this impact analysis and this implementation roadmap.
Yeah.
And this is in Brazil, but this can be done in a lot of different countries that are
Yeah.
different stages in terms of their energy labeling, for example.
Yeah, but I know we're over time, but I just want to because this is so interesting. The thing here is you guys do this energy labeling, right? If you do a whole impact analysis, you can do this impact this energy labeling now on data. A lot of these traffic light regulations on red, yellow, and green are very arbitrary ways of organizing, let's say, if energy efficiency under a label to inform consumer. But now this in this case of your case with this whole impact analysis, you also have the underlying data from a lot of buildings. Am I correct?
Yeah. Yes, exactly. With the work we've done in Brazil, of course, we have a lot of data ourselves in terms of buildings.
Yeah.
And so some of these same kinds of actions can happen in other countries. So a benchmarking project, for example, in let's say Morocco, just as an example,
Yeah.
it's an up and coming country. A benchmarking project there can have the potential of mapping with a very large
Mm-hmm.
national energy auditing project can have the potential of mapping these buildings and seeing how much they're consuming, seeing where the main energy consumption is, and this information can be used afterwards for a labeling scheme, for example.
Yeah. Yeah.
So again, we are now going to begin a new project with the Brazilian government, with the energy ministry, which will create a platform, a national platform, in order to collect all this data from the labeling
Yeah.
project and bring them into a national database, which
Yeah.
doesn't exist today.
Yeah. Yeah.
So one project feeds into another. Is it enough
Yeah.
just to have a policy for labeling?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's so much more potential that can bring
Yeah.
more information, that can bring more efficiency to the country.
Yes.
And a lot of countries say, "Oh, well, we already have an energy policy." Okay, but there's so much intricacies
Yeah. Yeah.
that can be done.
Yeah.
Just another quick example, because I think it's a very wide approach, but
Yeah.
a lot of work can be done also with networks,
Yeah.
and we are right now responsible for piloting
Yeah.
the technically an energy efficiency learning network in industry.
Yeah.
There is another similar network which is being done with public buildings,
Yeah.
and the idea is really, and this industry network, I mean, we're talking about 11 humongous multinational industries,
Yeah.
so that really understand the importance of competition.
Yeah.
And they are in this network where they share information about energy efficiency, and this helps all of them advance
Yeah.
at the same time. Each one has their own interests, of course, but a lot
Yeah.
of information is gained. This is a
Yeah.
model that comes from Europe, where there are hundreds and hundreds of these networks.
Yeah.
And what we see, putting this all into a nutshell, is that in the developing countries in the world,
Yeah.
there is much more than the governments sometimes realize themselves
Mm-hmm.
that goes into putting an energy policy into effect.
Yes.
And we believe in the power of partnerships. So
Yeah.
we work with partners
Yeah.
wherever we are in
Yeah.
Brazil and in the rest of the world. And we
Mhm.
see developing countries that are more advanced in this kind of policy, such as the UK, that have this
Yeah.
vision of
Yeah.
helping the developing world to advance their policy.
Yeah.
We work in partnership with these organizations,
Yeah.
and we believe that with this kind of partnership, not only financing, but also in terms of technical partnerships. You know, a lot of companies in the UK, for example, do different parts of this work where we come in, you know, having this this wide view of the policy itself, and together we can help developing countries that need this support to generate information and make informed decisions and really create programs to put this energy policy into effect.
Yeah, very good. We're over time, way over time, but I want to give you 30 seconds to tell us where you think, let's say, Mitsidi is together with Energy Brain in 3, 4, 5 years, let's say 2025, and what the role of the UK is. 30 seconds. Here you go.
Okay. We will definitely be working in the energy transition in many aspects, and not only energy efficiency. So we're looking at other technologies, but always with a technical, with a critical analysis sort of view. So hydrogen, everyone's talking about it, but where exactly does this fit in? What exactly are the benefits that this will bring? What are the dangers? So we will be in a place. We see ourselves in a place where we will be doing studies, not only energy efficiency, but climate mitigation as a whole, in countries all over the world, being recognized as the reference in terms of energy policy think tanks globally. And we are on that path today. I'm happy to say that. And the role of the UK in this process is really to be a place where we can reach the world much more sturdily and robustly than where we are now. The UK is one of the centers of the world. It's the companies that are working from the UK bring a lot of credibility with them, and there's a whole ecosystem of startups and companies in the UK that work with climate mitigation. We have worked in partnership with UK companies before, and we see ourselves working a lot in partnership with the UK government and UK companies to bring this this work all over the world.
Very good. Well, Alex, thank you very much. This was a very interesting insight in what is happening in energy efficiency in buildings and regulations and a lot of other stuff. For all of you out there that want to hear more about Alex Mitsidi, what's inside the box of Energy Brain, please follow them on their socials. Alex will leave the socials here within on our socials, so you can follow the link or the links that we distribute or the links that Mitsidi distributes. Thank you very much, everybody, for being here together with us. Alex, thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you so much, Gideon, for having us. It's been an enormous pleasure talking to you this morning.
Awesome.
And thank you, all of you who are watching us and who will watch this.
Great. So this brings us to the end of another conversation with a green entrepreneur. Super exciting, this time from Brazil. We will be here again next week on Monday, same time, same place, with another exciting green entrepreneur. Thank you very much. Enjoy your day and have a great weekend. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Cheers.